Hello, and I'm coming back to finish up the last part of the movie Last Holiday. I was saying sometimes you've seen them and they've seen you. You think that they haven't been watching you, they've been watching you the whole time. Sometimes you think that they're not coming to you, they're trying to get to you just as much as you think that they're trying to get to you. It's just, it doesn't look like it. You've seen them coming, but it was at such a distance that you brushed it off. At the distance that she saw him, she wouldn't have been able to recognize him coming towards her at all. But he was that close. And then she turned the car, her car had to turn around and go back up the mountain. And he had to make the bold decision to walk it himself. So, God has been stretching these men that they were going to have to take very intent directive to go and to come to you wherever you are, to get what it was that he was trying to get them to do. And he was stretching them because this time you've done all the work. This time it was for them to do the work. Go back and look at my word rhyme in the bush. I think it's part 2, where I talk about you're both coming up the mountain. It's just they coming up quicker, but their things are more trepidatious for them, though it would look like it's nothing. They are the ram in the bush. They coming to you. But you have to be patient for them to get there. And they went back up the mountain, and she ends up getting back to the hotel, and I don't know whether she got another treatment or what have you, but what happened? She goes back to the restaurant and she gets to cook with her favorite cook because they were short staffed because it was the holiday, and I think it's New Year's or something like that, and they were short staffed, and then people are dropping stuff and all this, and she said, "Can I help?" And he's like, "Yeah." So she ends up cooking with him, which is another goal that she had. She wanted to be able to cook with this man, and so God is just knocking all of her desires off of her list. God wants to bless us. We just have to be in the right place. And when we get there, it will be a Amos 9:13 moment where all the things are going to fall into place just like that. That. We just got to get to where we're supposed to get. And God's going to make it easier for us because of all we had to go through, as according to Isaiah 61, 7 and 8. For all that you had to go through, you will be richly rewarded. And so she helps them cook, and I forgot what happened. They had a dinner that night, and Cragen finds out because he makes a call, and when he makes the call, he finds out that she was a sales associate, and he comes back and he busts up the entire table talking about, "Oh, y'all sitting there thinking that she's some rich woman and all of this type of stuff. She was an employee at one of my stores." And then toasts himself, and everybody looks at him like, "You are a despicable man." And she stands up. She said, "You know what? I was an employee, and I came here to discreetly have my time because she's sick, or she thought she was sick and she was dying." And she tells them that. And she's like, "I wanted to blow all my money and just go out in style." And then she uses that moment to speak some wisdom into all of them. And then the cook comes out. He's like, "You didn't even have to explain none of that to them. They didn't even deserve that much of an explanation." And she's like, "It's all right." And she gets up and leaves, and everybody leaves him because they're like, "You are a despicable man." And they go back, and everybody goes to check His mistress leaves to go check on her. Uh, the congressman leaves. Everybody leaves. And he's left sitting there by himself drinking. He get all foolish and decide he gonna go and sit out on the balcony, or not the balcony, but the ledge. Now she's up. She had went up to her room, and the redhead mistress, she's like, I told him off, and now I'm gonna go back to school. And she's like, good for you. Meanwhile, a note is coming in from the doctor saying that the machine CAT scan was wrong, and she's not dying. So, but the receptionist is on the opposite side of the desk looking up at the ceiling and actually paying attention to it, because she never paid attention to it the whole time she was there. And she was like, this is a beautiful ceiling. And she comes back around the table, but the woman that was her bellhop that cried when she found out that she could potentially be dying, she ended up finding the letter. But at the same time, it's so funny. At the same time, she ends up having to go outside and talk the guy off the ledge. And she's like, why you out here? What you doing? What's going on? And he's like, I turned everybody against me and this, that, and the other. He's like, yeah, you didn't have to do that out here on this ledge. And she tries to give him some advice. And then here comes, she starts talking to him about life, and then she starts talking to him about Sean, the guy that she liked, and then all of a sudden she hears his voice, and she's like, oh, that sounded like him. I guess I'm finally getting sick enough that blah, 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 blah. And he was like, well, somebody did just yell your name. He's like, really? And he points to where the person was yelling, and she's like, Sean? And he's like, he calls her, Georgia, stay right there. I'm coming up there. And he comes running up, and the people that work in the hotel is like, you looking for her? Like, yeah. And they take him directly to where she's at. And he comes up and he's like, what are y'all doing out here? And he's like, she's like, I was just talking about you. Sometimes God answers your prayers just like that. Just like that. Are you willing to pray a prayer that's going to come together just like that if you open your mouth and say it? Just say it. And she was talking about him, and he's like, look, and he has to admit that he's into her. And he's like, yeah, I've liked you all this time. And then he's like, if you come back home, we'll figure everything else out. And she's like, well, I don't really have time. And just as he's getting himself together to go back in the window, the secretary, the what's her name, the bellhop lady, she comes, grabs his leg, and I know he's standing there like, please let go of my leg. And she's pretty much holding on to him, saying, you don't have to worry about anything, because you're not going to die, because this fax just came in saying that it was wrong. You are not dying. And they're like, yes, oh my God, Jesus, thank you. And everybody's deciding to come in. Almost left the guy out there that they went to help in the first place. And he's like, come on, let's get in here. Let's go inside. And everybody tries to go inside. Meanwhile, time passes, and they do a flash forward that her and him finally did get married. And they're opening their first restaurant together. And is the debut day of the restaurant opening, and everybody's there. Families come, the little boys there. Even I think the senator showed up, and here's Admiral Lagasse. And she's like, oh my God, it's Admiral Lagasse. That was the last thing that she had in her book of possibilities. And then, what was it? The chef guy, He was working in the kitchen trying to make sure that everything came out together. Well, actually, no, he was on holiday. That's why he was there. He was coming to visit on holiday for himself, and so what you see at the end of the film is the book of possibilities now becomes the book of realities. What are you willing to do? The sudden change that you make could be the thing that makes an instant shift in your life, that could transition everything that you've been waiting for, wishing for, praying for, writing the decrees, decreeing and declaring, doing all of this kind of stuff. And it's maybe that one little shift that will bring about the manifestation of the Kairos moment in which you've been waiting for to manifest in your life. And now is the time. In an instant. Everything. All at once. All at the same time. And that's what I had to say. At least for this. And we're going to come back for the review of Fool's Rushing.